enjoy learning about other people's achievements. How did they do it? How can you do it? So for the next 30 minutes, sit back and relax while you and I explore these very special wonders that make people successful and interesting. Welcome to my world, and Dr. Passes presents. The doctors are in. That's right. I have with me a wonderful gentleman, a wonderful doctor that you're going to meet shortly, and that's the reason why we are wearing our doctor's coats. So this way you have an idea that two people of healthcare are going to be talking with you. And I've got a very interesting story to tell you. When we treat patients, we see usually maybe 2 patients a week, let's say, under normal circumstances, that call us up and say, I cracked a tooth. And they come in and we take care of them. Well, in the past 3 years, we've been seeing 3 to 5 people cracking their teeth a day. Not a week, a day. Think of what that is a week. Multiply it by 5. People are cracking teeth like crazy. We belong to an elite group of dentists throughout the United States and Canada, and we communicate with each other through WhatsApp. And all of a sudden, we're seeing other people are seeing the same thing, and we're all saying, hey, are you seeing this? They say, yeah, we're all seeing it. People are cracking teeth like crazy. Then I'm reading the New York Times, and I come across an article that I took out and I framed, and we hang it in the office. And the article, let me just look at it first so I can read it. It says, a dentist sees more cracked teeth. What's going on? And in this article, this dentist explains that he is seeing cracked teeth, and it's just, there's no let up. And we don't understand what's happening. Well, we kind of figured it out. So this show today is going to be all about cracked teeth, what causes it, what's happening, and how it can affect you, and what you can do about it so that you don't have to suffer the consequences. But first, I want to introduce you to a terrific gentleman, a great guy, and my colleague and my associate, Dr. Schiff.
Dr. Pass, it's a pleasure to spend time with you outside of the office.
It's great to be with you as well. I always enjoy my time with you. So let me tell you a little bit about this wonderful gentleman here, Dr. Adam Schiff. You earned your DDS degree from my alma mater, NYU College of Dentistry. You then completed a residency at my alma mater, Jamaica Hospital, the Jamaica Hospital, which is considered a level 1 trauma center. And you return during your day off, and you go down there and you lecture to the current residents, which is great. And you also have a belief in learning, which is to you a lifelong process. We share the same feeling, and you've invested hundreds of hours in continuing education programs to stay up to date with the latest in the field of dentistry. Okay, this has earned you the rank, and this is really cool, the rank of Fellow in the Academy of General Dentists, which is an FAGD designation after your name, and then you also became a Fellow in the International Congress of Oral Implantologists. That means you place implants and reconstruct it.
That's right.
So that's the end of the show. Goodbye. No, okay. So we've spent so much time reading about you, and it's great. And you're a terrific dentist, and patients love you. Okay, so let's begin now. In reading this, all about these fractures and all that stuff, why do teeth develop fractures? What's going on?
Well, doctor, I think that New York Times article really gets to the heart of that. That article was published on September 8th of 2020, a few months into the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And, it seems like ancient history already, but if you think back 3 years ago to March, April, May, June of 2020, what was going on in the world? People were home from work, children were home from school, people were getting sick, hospitals were overwhelmed, the economy was in shambles. This all leads to stress. And when people are under stress, they clench their jaw, they grind their teeth, and this has been associated with a rise that's been seen nationwide and probably around the world.
Probably around the world.
Maybe a mini epidemic of cracked teeth.
Unbelievable. By the way, we have a term for it in dentistry when someone is clenching and grinding their teeth. Could you tell us?
It's called bruxism.
Bruxism. Bruxism. Bruxism. Okay, great. So now people are experiencing bruxism. And in grinding the teeth, now there's a lot to talk about with this, with cracking the teeth. Where to begin with this? There's so much. So why will someone crack their teeth? Is there something that they can see or do? Can you prevent it? What happens here?
The best way to prevent a problem from teeth cracking is to catch the crack early during a routine visit to the dentist before you know there's a crack. When the dentist looks in your mouth and says, "Mrs. Jones, I see a crack in this tooth. I know you don't have any problems now, but if we don't take care of this, you soon will."
Now, will X-rays show it, or clinical examination shows it?
If
Photos.
an X-ray shows a crack in your tooth, there's a very big problem.
It's too late already.
It's way too late. That tooth is probably going to be extracted if there's a crack big enough to show on an X-ray.
Is this a good time to show some images?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so.
So I'm going to hold up some of these images.
And before you go on, Dr.
Yeah.
Passes, these are some images that I've prepared. I've gone through the records in the practice, and these are all patients we've seen since the fall. Just to give you some frame of reference of how frequently we're seeing patients coming in with cracks in their teeth.
Unbelievable. I think my viewer is going to be blown away when he or she sees this. So I'll hold it up and you'll talk.
I mean, this patient here, this tooth is self-explanatory. You can see the crack running right across side to side. This tooth is completely split in half. And
Completely split in half.
Completely split in half. There's nothing to do here but take the tooth out.
So you can't save this.
We cannot save this.
But doc, please save my tooth. Too late.
Too late. Super glue doesn't work on teeth.
Right. And a bonded filling won't do it either.
There's no way to bond it. Bacteria will get all the way inside the tooth, into the bone. That tooth's got to go. There's nothing to be done.
Okay, that's one down. And here's another one. And to my viewer, I apologize. There's just a little red stuff on here. Use your imagination.
Well, sometimes you don't see the full extent of the crack until you've cleaned out any old fillings or other debris that's inside the tooth. This was a patient where the tooth was being held together by a bonded filling. So until we cleaned that filling out, we didn't see that the tooth had actually separated. You can see the crack at the top of this picture here, right up there. We didn't know the pieces had completely separated. They were being held together by the bonded film.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Okay, now this is an interesting picture. We turn this around here. What are we telling my viewer?
The next group of pictures here are cases that really show you once you have a symptom in the tooth, and it doesn't have to be completely split into pieces, but once you come in with a problem on a tooth with a crack, the outcome is unpredictable. You don't know where things are going to go. So you can see in this picture here, this patient has, if I may point to the picture, this patient has an old metal filling, and that's significant here as well, and I'm sure we're going to get to that later. But you can see cracks on both sides of the tooth around that filling. And if you'll show the next picture, once we cleaned everything out of this tooth.
Oh, wow. Man, you got to really explain this because my viewer's not a dentist, and the viewer is going to look and go, what the heck is that?
We were hoping we can save this tooth for the patient with a root canal. So when you do a root canal, you need to get into the very center of the tooth where there's a nerve, where there are blood vessels, and you need to thoroughly clean and disinfect that center hollow in the middle of the tooth. And that's what this dark area is here. That's that hollow. But you can see running along the floor of the tooth, side to side, that crack continued all the way down. And this tooth is hopeless. Hopeless is the right word. If we tried a root canal, we would probably be taking this tooth out within a year.
Wow. It's just incredible. Now, this is a little different.
This is a little different.
It's a little different.
But this is a great illustration of why what I mean when I say things are out of our control once the tooth breaks. Because in order for a crack on this corner to have happened, there had to have been smaller cracks already happening at the edges of this this break around this filling.
And that's where an early
And that's where
preventive
early
examination.
preventive examination comes in to find those cracks before a corner of the tooth breaks off. Because once this happens, there's no way to know how far down the root of the tooth these cracks spread. In this case, we tried to save the tooth with the root canal. The patient came back still in pain. The tooth was still loose. And even though we didn't see the crack, it had to be there. The crack had to have been too far gone to save, and we had to take this tooth out.
This is as good a time as any for me to make a little plug here for preventive dentistry. And I need you to corroborate what I'm about to say. How many times do we plead, we cajole with patients, come in for your hygiene visit, and the hygiene visit with the hygienist and also the dentist performing an examination where we can see things that's happening before it turns into something horrific. And the patients, it's nothing. Then they come in with a split tooth.
A lot of patients have an attitude of either out of fear of dental procedures or out of not wanting to know if there's a problem or not seeing value in caring for their teeth. Many patients won't go to a dentist if they don't have a problem. They think, when something bothers me, we'll go to the dentist, I'll have my filling done, and we'll take care of it.
And then they wonder why it's costing so much.
And they wonder why
it could have cost less.
The tooth ends up needing a root canal, or they end up losing a tooth for a problem that could have been resolved much more simply, much more easily if it had been found earlier. And an analogy I'll give in the medical field, once you have a heart attack, it's too late. You don't know how much damage has been done to the heart. There's a risk for further heart attacks. The time to prevent a heart attack is when the doctor tells you you have high cholesterol, when your doctor tells you you have starting to get blockages in your artery. Once the heart attack happens, you can't fix that damage. It's the same with the tooth. The time to take care of this is when you first see a crack, before the tooth has a heart attack, before the tooth breaks and dies.
Terrific. We're almost out of pictures. So let's
We're almost out of pictures.
Okay, talk to me. What are we looking at?
This is another case where the patient came in with pain. You see the crack around the filling, and we have a special machine in our office that shows things that oftentimes are missed on a normal X-ray. It's called a cone beam CT scan. It shows a three-dimensional picture of the tooth.
In essence, we can just say it's a dental CAT scan.
It's a dental CAT scan.
For lack of a better way of phrasing it.
It's a dental CAT scan. And if you'll show the next picture,
sure.
It's the same tooth, and from the outside, it just looks like a tooth with a crack. There's no cavity. There's no reason why there should be pain, and yet, if you can see the dark circles at the tips of this tooth here, that's an infection. How did that get there?
And it didn't show up on a regular X-ray.
Nothing showed up on the regular X-ray. You take an X-ray and say, I have no explanation for why you have pain in this tooth. But we see here clear as day, this tooth has an infection around the tips.
And it's only because of this advanced technology.
And it's only there because of the crack in this tooth.
Only there because of the crack in the tooth. It's unbelievable. Okay, let me see. We've got a few more here.
Well,
boy.
This is another case. You can see clear as day the crack on the back half of the tooth. This was a tooth where the patient didn't have any symptoms. And this is very important. The patient did not have any symptoms at the time he came in with the crack in his tooth. He just had a crack. We tried to repair the tooth simply with a crown for him. It's like a helmet for a tooth. But a short while later, he came in with some discomfort on the tooth. He was very sensitive to temperature. And that's a sign that the nerve in the tooth was dying. Now, it's unusual for the nerve in the tooth to die after a routine dental procedure. It can happen, but more often than not, it's a result of injury to the nerve in the middle of the tooth. That injury began with the crack. Maybe the crown put it over the edge. Maybe it was the straw that broke the camel's back, but this tooth was in trouble when it started cracking.
Okay, and you've got this, wow, look at this guy.
This is a very interesting one because here we have a crack that goes down the root of the tooth. Again, we tried to save this tooth for the patient with a root canal, but we kept following this crack deeper and deeper into the tooth, and you can see it actually goes right to the opening of one of those canals. Well, now we have a dilemma. What do we do? Do we try to save the tooth with the root canal? Or do we take I don't want to call it the sure thing, but the only way to guarantee that this tooth isn't going to cause a problem in the future is to take it out. Now, this could be successful, maybe not. That's really up to, at that point, you have to have a conversation with the patient. What do you want to do? How do you want to treat this? Do you want to do everything possible to try to save the tooth with the understanding that when we see a crack like this, there's no guarantee for success? Or do you want to just know this won't be a problem for you in the future and have the tooth taken out?
You know, this comes back then to a phrase that we love to say in the office. This means at that moment you become the dental advocate for the patient. You put all of your instruments down, you sit, bring the patient upright, and look at the patient right in the eyes and speak to the patient and explain. It comes through listening, caring, and explaining. Let the patient know what's going on so that they can have enough information to make a well-informed decision.
The patient is a partner in this process. We are not doing something on the patient. We're doing something to help the patient.
With the patient.
With the patient, and the patient's wishes are paramount. And the patient has to be involved in the process of deciding how they want their teeth taken care of. Mm-hmm. These last group of photos are cases where the patient had no symptoms, the patient had no idea there was a crack. We've told these patients during an exam, this is what I see. We've recommended crowns, and so far these teeth are all doing very well.
Because they're being held together.
No, they're being held together, they're being protected, and they're not having any issues. These teeth are doing very well. No root canals in any of these cases, even in a case like this next one where there are cracks on both sides of the tooth around this old filling here and here. No issues.
That's excellent.
This tooth is now protected with a crown.
All because we got it early.
All because we got it early.
Let me give you, this is the last picture we have here.
And this picture really demonstrates what's happening underneath those old fillings. When we see a crack on one side of the tooth, what's happening underneath that filling? And you can see here, this crack is traveling all the way along the floor of the tooth here, and then it splits here. It's only a matter of time before a corner of this tooth cracks off, the tooth splits completely, that crack reaches the nerve, and this patient is either in for a root canal or an extraction. But so far, this tooth has been doing very well with just a crown.
I think it's terrific. By the way, I must say that all of this discussion, you really cracked me up. Anyway, I couldn't resist that. Couldn't resist that. Okay, so it's a little humor, but not good though. Okay, so now the big question is, why are we seeing it more now than I've ever seen it in my career, which is over 50 years?
I think that article in the Times really brought that out, and it related everything to stress. There's no question when you find yourself, and I find myself doing this too during the day, if I'm intently focused on something, I'll catch myself bearing down on my teeth, even during the daytime.
Yep.
Nighttime, it's even worse. During the night, when we don't have control over our muscles, we can put tremendous pressure on our teeth, clenching and grinding during the nighttime, and that's when most of this damage happens.
Mm-hmm. So this leads me to another question about, I know we're getting a little more detailed here than maybe we need to, but I think it would be good information for the patient to have. There are different kinds of materials that can be used to restore a tooth if you're going to put a crown on a tooth. Would you first explain to our viewer simply what's a crown?
Before what is a crown? That's a great question. The best way I can describe a crown, my favorite way to describe a crown, is a helmet for your tooth. Okay. It's not a decorative piece that you put on top of your tooth's head for a coronation ceremony. It's a helmet for your tooth that covers the tooth on top and on all sides. It protects the tooth from biting forces, and by surrounding the tooth 360 degrees, it holds everything together. So if there is a crack already, it doesn't get worse. Everything is squeezed together, held in place by the crown.
Mm-hmm. So if an individual is a heavy bruxer, a heavy clencher, a heavy grinder, there are different materials. What material might you use? What material might you not use?
My grandfather was a dentist. He graduated from NYU in the late 50s.
Another NYU. Go ahead.
Another one.
Go ahead.
When he was in school, pardon the pun, but the gold standard was gold.
Gold.
For crowns, for fillings, gold foil was
I remember
the
it well.
ideal material because it replicates many of the properties of a tooth. It behaves very much like tooth structure. It's not a foreign material. The only problem is it's gold. And as time has gone on, as dental materials have evolved, tooth-colored materials became available. And people wanted their teeth to look like teeth. People accepted gold when it was the only available option. But when other materials, tooth-colored materials, became available, people tended to favor those materials. The workhorse is porcelain. Porcelain over a metal base. You don't see the metal, you just see the porcelain.
It's like your bathtub.
Like
Porcelain's baked on top of metal.
Or enameled cast iron. I have a Dutch oven that I love.
Perfect.
Similar idea. There's a newer material called zirconia, which has advantages and disadvantages, but it's a very, very strong material.
Very hard.
Very hard. But for someone who bruxes, for someone who grinds and clenches their teeth, there are drawbacks to these materials. Porcelain is abrasive. Zirconia is very hard. But when you have a problem, you want the weakest link to be not the tooth. You don't want a crown on a tooth to hurt the tooth above it. For example, if you're working on a bottom tooth, zirconia is so hard, it won't break. Well, if you have someone grinding their teeth so hard that...
What will break?
The opposing tooth.
The opposing tooth.
Or it'll be worn down. We have patients coming in with their teeth look yellow, not because they've been eating too much turmeric, but because they've worn through the white enamel and the yellow dentin that's underneath is showing through.
Exactly.
And while zirconia is a very hard material and will protect the tooth that it's on, it can damage the opposing tooth.
I want to quickly, because we're going to be out of time shortly, briefly. So when an individual you see has cracks, the early warning sign, and you say, we better cover this tooth with a crown. So what happens at times with insurance? Give me about a 1-2 minute answer at most.
Insurance companies have their guidelines of when they cover certain procedures. And for crowns, that often means what they will call a complete fracture. They want to see a whole piece of tooth missing. They want to see pain. They want to see undisputable evidence that there is nothing less than a crown that will fix this problem. But we know that if you wait for those symptoms to happen, as evidenced by
these pictures,
this stack of pictures here in front of us, the outcome for the patient tends to be worse, unpredictable. So what we tell the patient is, this tooth needs a crown now. The best thing for you, for your tooth, is a crown now.
And not a filling.
Not a filling. A filling will not hold the tooth together. It will not protect the tooth from the biting forces that caused the crack in the first place. We have been successful in advocating for our patients with the insurance companies, replying to the initial denials that we've come to expect, explaining why these teeth need crowns. And in fact, the AAE just put out a paper.
What's AAE?
The AAE is the American Academy of Endodontists, the American Association of Endodontists. These are the root canal specialists.
Okay.
These are the people who are seeing the teeth that have cracks sent to them to get the patient out of pain, to try to fix the tooth so that the tooth can be rebuilt. They have the data on the long-term outcomes of these teeth. And their comment is, as soon as you see a crack in the tooth, protect that tooth with a crown, whether or not there's pain, whether or not the tooth is broken. Because if you wait for symptoms, the success of root canal treatment, when the patient comes in with pain, drops significantly the more symptoms the patient shows. If you wait for insurance companies to say, we will cover this, you may lose that tooth. And with that information, we've been able to advocate for our patients with the insurance companies to say the specialists are saying this tooth needs to be crowned now, not to wait for the problem to happen. And I'm proud to say that they've been stepping up and doing what they should be doing for their clients,
for our patients,
for our patients, for their clients,
right?
And what's best for the tooth.
So we're just about out of time. So first, I want you to give me any kind of parting comments to my viewer to walk away with after seeing this show. What can you say?
Routine dental care is important, not just for a healthy mouth, for the gums, but to find problems early before they become bigger problems and more expensive problems to fix. Stress is a major underlying cause of many dental problems, not just cracks in teeth, but other TMJ, that's the jaw joint problems, and
bone loss.
And cause bone loss. And if you're not already wearing one, if you have some kind of TMD, disease of the joint, you should consider a night guard to protect your teeth while you sleep.
Well, I think those words of advice are excellent, and I appreciate it. I really appreciate you taking your time, and today I know you're off, to come down and to help our viewer appreciate what you and I see every single day. So I think it's terrific. Dr. Adam Schiff, it is a pleasure to work with you during the course of the day and to be with you on this set like this as well. And it's
Pleasure to be here.
And before you leave, I'm going to ask you also to sign our visitor guest book. So we'll get the book out.
It would be my pleasure.
And you can sign it, and it's terrific. And I'll see you around the cuspidor. You know, in the office.
I'll see you at 10 o'clock tomorrow.
Absolutely. Just absolutely terrific. And I hope that you had a chance to learn something new and something of interest. I always like to bring something to you so that you could say, I didn't know that. Now I can take care of myself. Now I think I understand why I get a little tweak of pain in one of my teeth when I bite down. Go to your dentist. Take care of your teeth. What's the expression? Be true to your teeth, or they'll be false to you. Okay, so that's corny. May the floss be with you. So this is Dr. Passes and Dr. Schiff saying so long for now. We'll see you again next time. Take care.